Welcome back, people of Earth and elsewhere, to the channel where the content is spam and I am Crackers. If you've made it this far, I'd like to thank you for dredging through the first two parts of my complete Yuri on Ice analysis and making it to this final piece. I intend to leave off on a high note, so bear with me on the final negative slog where I talk about the problems with the overall plot of the show. Yuri on Ice was not given the time it needed to show in full what it had in store, but rather, again, a poor choice was made to remove half of all of the content instead of removing all of half of the content in order to fit everything into 12 episodes. And I'm going to repeat what I've told others about my stance on this. Personally, I'd rather see half of a decent whole story than a whole half-decent story. This resulted in a lot of half-baked potential characters, incomplete leading characters and relationships, unfortunate animation errors, and skewed story focus, which have all been discussed previously. However, the most egregious flaw of the plot has yet to be talked about, and what a sin it is. Truly terrible is what I have to call the year we pretend didn't happen. Right smack in the first half of the first episode, and I have yet to see anybody mention it. We enter the show immediately after Yuri Katsuki's failure at his first Grand Prix, and we surmise that this event takes place every year in December, right? After this, we get a decent introduction to Katsuki's so-called anxiety, and we are introduced to Yuri Plisetsky as he does his best to intimidate his potential future rival in the senior division of the pro skating circuit. Once all of this and more is said and done, we get a time skip to March, 1 year later, where Katsuki has broken off with his old coach, failed in the preliminary competitions that could get him into the runnings for the next Grand Prix final, and he's graduated college with who knows what degree. He is currently contemplating quitting skating entirely. So what's the problem, Crackers? Everything. Everything is the problem from here on out. Let's take into account what 1 year later means along with the facts we're given, specifically the statement on Yuri Plisetsky's part where he says back pre-time skip that he'll be competing in the Grand Prix final next year. Well, if we're reading 1 year later correctly, and are told somewhere that Yuri Plisetsky's birthday is in March, we've got one of two major problems. Either a first scenario, where we assume he's 14 at the time of the first confrontation, and doesn't end up competing the first year he's able to in the senior division for some reason, because in the end he does manage to make history by winning the gold in the Grand Prix final in his senior debut, but at that time he also was 15 then, like in the year of his debut, like the year he would first be able to compete in the senior division. Okay, so let's back up a bit and age everyone back, and make it so that he is 15 at his debut, and it is that year. His first statement suddenly becomes a lie, because if his debut is really 2 years later, not the one that they make it seem, then he would have to be 13 at the point of this intimidating first encounter with Yuri Katsuki, who is 21 years old at the time, and this makes absolutely no sense, because he said he'd be competing next year, but then he would have been 14, and he wouldn't have been able to compete that year. Okay, so let's pretend here that somehow the age isn't the problem here. He's 14 at the time of episode 1, 15 making his debut. If it was really the 2-year difference between Yuri Katsuki's first Grand Prix final and his second Grand Prix final, as it seems to be implied, then we shouldn't even have Yuri Plisetsky as a problem as he's presented in the first couple of episodes anyway, because I am absolutely certain that he would have tracked down Victor into keeping his promise to give him a routine his debut year, an entire season before he competed against Yuri Katsuki, and that takes a whole chunk out of, like I said, the motives of the first few episodes and essentially the start of the series, and the reason why we have a rivalry between these two Yuris. Aren't you overthinking this, Crackers? Well, they did specify March 1 year later, and wind up acting like it's really March of the next year. They kept referring to Katsuki's debut at the Grand Prix final as last year, when according to that statement it happened 2 years ago. It's consistent with this at least, but it's almost like they meant to say something similar, but completely different. Really, just this simple phrasing throws a wrench into the proverbial machine and skates on thin ice for the rest of the series as it is. Let's quickly take up the benefit of the doubt and say that it was just a mistake in the text or something. calling it a mistake won't change the fact that 1 year later is what was established, and the show manages to crawl along the bottom of a plot canyon for the rest of its runtime. And with that out of the way, I've gotten through all of my gripes, but I'm not quite finished yet. I figured I'd like to end my list with the things that I really loved about the show, regardless of its shortcomings that they ultimately couldn't make up for. Number 1, the music. It's one place I don't think the show falls flat. I've already talked about History Maker being an awesome song, and the rest of the soundtrack is pretty much perfect. It always fits the scene, and it's designed to help bring out the personalities of the skaters. While I'm not talking even slightly about the titular Yuri on Ice routine, I think that Minami's jazz tap skating was perfect for his energetic personality, and JJ's theme of the king, while pretentious and a bit cringy, is everything it needs to be to tell us about his character. Every other minor character is given just as a distinct selection of music to bring out their theme for the skating season. Even if that point was a waste of time, you can't fault the people who made this show for leaving such a fun detail in. Number 2, Yuri Plisetsky. Should have been the main character just from what I've seen, which is everything, twice. He fits the protagonist's mold, and while he gets help from several sources, he's never entirely dependent on any other character to make him who he is, and he never forgets who's been assisting him the entire time either. Underdeveloped and suffering from an extreme lack of screen time, he's a strong character and not a bad kid once you get past the part of him that is an almost constant stream of grouchy Russian screaming. Really, he deserved more of a spotlight, but was one of the most severely gypped characters that we could have definitely used a scene more of. Number 3, the other secondary characters. Did I say repeatedly they were a waste of our time? Yes, and I won't take that back. But I really did like most everybody who got shafted with half-cocked development due to the plot and other reasons like that. Waste or not, I did bother to remember them by name, if not by nationality, and it truly is a shame that guys like Peachy, Emil, and Georgi didn't mean anything to the grand scheme of things. Their potential is really what was wasted, and I will lament this as much as JJ's unfortunate assassination by plot. R.I.P. to all the people who will probably be replaced in Season 2, especially JJ, who we all know should be his own reason as to why someone should like this show. No, really, let's get the Yuri Plisetsky show featuring rival Jean-Jacques Leroy. Or it might work the other way around, too. Really, can we see that instead? Number 4, the coordination. Much like the music, there was clearly a lot of thought and research poured into giving each of the most unimportant skaters routines, and even though the execution of this and the animation was poor, to say it nicely, I'm not above giving it a thumbs up because darn if they didn't try to really capture the art and sport of skating, even if it was only about half as effective as it should have been. Number 5, the dub. I can't say much for the Japanese, but if it's anywhere near as good as the English dub version, and I will take anybody's word for that, then the voice acting really adds to the characters where the story lacks. Plus, all the accents are super fun, and it's always nice when a dub gets into it. Top 10 dubs? Probably not, but it is really good, even if I feel like there were several missed chances to use Bolshevik as an expletive, and that does disappoint me just a little bit. Number 6, small details. Stuff that makes me happy and shows how much the show was supposed to be better. Like the blade covers that the skaters use when walking around before and after their routines. The blades on Victor's skates are actually colored gold, and he has a tissue box shaped like his dog. I don't ask why, I just happen to find that endearing. JJ crosses himself before his short programs, and the way they use social media is pretty realistic, even if I do find that point just a little bit annoying. Peachy also really likes hamsters as opposed to the cats and dogs around him. There are a lot more, but I'll leave it at that for now. Topics! Number 7. It could have been worse. I guess it really could have been. I'm willing to admit that my own expectations of the show are what really brings the series down for me personally, and I might have sounded a bit harsh in this series of videos because of that. And number 8. I don't have to watch it again. You know what, never mind, forget that last one. Season 2 is definitely happening. If it gets a simuldub, I might have to keep updated on it. Who knows, a second season could probably fill in some of the plot holes or showcase better animation. There are a lot of things that could be improved on if the time is actually given to it that it needs. But I guess we'll find out. And there you have it, folks. You've just managed to finish SpamCrackers' completed breakdown of Yuri on Ice, the good, the bad, and the JJ. To anyone who made it all the way through all 3 parts, thank you once more for giving me the time. I'll be leaving the subject as it is for now, but don't think I've said everything I have to say about Yuri on Ice. The Yuris particularly could use an entire other video of their own to really talk about or compare and contrast their characters. But again, that's a topic for maybe another day. It'll depend on whether or not there's an interest for that, and how badly anyone wants to see me draw an actual character from the show. Comment who's your favorite character other than Victor or Yuri Kotsky, and who knows, you might see a request on this channel. Whether or not you want to see that, or if you agree with all the things I've said, be sure to comment your own feelings under here. I'm always open to discussion or debate, and after saying all of this, I'm not going to say that you can't bring your own points to the table. Then again, I like any suggestions for future artistic endeavors and video subjects as well, so do me a favor and don't hold back. If this analysis impressed you and you want to see more content like this, be sure to tell me, because I'm planning to do more videos like this. Or subscribe here to show your support. Maybe you could even follow me on Twitter to keep updated on my general shenanigans without the hassle of worrying about whether or not you'll be randomly unfollowed from me like here on YouTube. With that, I'm finally finished. Thanks for watching me through to the end, guys, and I hope to see you next time. Ciao!